Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about finding your own path, your own way, and embracing the imperfection of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches, former HR professionals, and mums, Kirsty and Catherine.
We love to discuss the topics that come up time and time again for our coaching clients and which affect us all, from things like acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
Each episode ends with a question for you and us to reflect on. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves. About that, I am ready now.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Mission Imperfect. And this week we are talking about yet another favourite topic. We are talking about the comfort zone, or comfort zones plural, actually. In fact, aren't we, Kirsty? So let's get started about comfort zones.
Yeah. I mean, what does a comfort zone look like or feel like to you? Because for me, a really crucial thing is that your comfort zone is going to be comfortable. And so I've got a really lovely image of a comfort zone, which probably doesn't help when it comes to leaving it, but it's somewhere for me that's really, it's a cozy little haven. It's where I can curl up with a book and maybe some crochet or knitting and obviously a nice cup of tea and a few biscuits and just shut the world out and chill. And that feels very appealing to me. I mean,
how that you managed to get tea and biscuits in there. Well, I don't think we managed to get biscuits in the last couple of episodes. So I'm glad to see the return of biscuits.
That was very remiss, wasn't it? Yes.
Yeah, it was. But I agree. I think it's somewhere familiar, somewhere reassuring, known and safe. And it's funny because I think those can all be positive things, but for some people they can actually be more negative, can't they? I think for some people those things mean further things like boring, or dull, unfulfilling, that there's perhaps no stretch and that the predictability is a downside rather than a plus side. I guess it comes down to different takes on these things and maybe facets of our personalities. I think this, and I hope this doesn't sound like a cop-out answer, I wonder if I'm a little bit in the middle. Do you know what I mean? I like new, exciting things, even if they might terrify me a little bit sometimes. And maybe I might do one and realise, nope, that's definitely not for me. Too far out of my comfort zone. Not going to do that again. But I think if everything always felt those familiar, reassuring things, would I always want to stay there? I don't know.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I'm wondering. Yeah, that's made me think now because, okay, I am not one of life's sort of adventurous risk takers. Far from it. I think I might be the missing link between humans and sloths. But it's, if you are of a sort of adventurous disposition and you constantly need new challenges and to be doing something different, going somewhere new, then I wonder if you have a different reaction to comfort zone or whether you simply define it differently. Do you think comfort zone sounds boring, or is your comfort zone that place of adventure and newness rather than the equivalent of my cozy little haven? I don't know whether comfort zone implies that security and sameness that I actually quite value and that others don't. I don't know if it always applies.
That's a really good point. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Someone else's comfort zone might be that it's all like risk taking, for example. That might be something that they are entirely comfortable with, whereas I'd probably describe myself as quite risk adverse.
I hear you. Yeah, so if you're, for somebody who is very adventurous, likes to take risks, if they are tied into a 9-to-5 office job with complete boring predictability every day, that's not going to be a comfort zone. Whereas for somebody who values that security and predictability in life, it is a comfort zone. Yeah, that's interesting. Before you said that, I'd kind of had the idea that everybody had the same sort of comfort zone thing going on, but no. But I think there's another assumption we do tend to make, which is that a comfort zone is always comfortable. It's that idea we have of it at any given point is permanent, kind of unchanging. That will always be our comfort zone, and it will always be comfortable for us. And I don't think that's the case. I mean, even if you take my version of a comfort zone, if you sit still for long enough in your comfy chair, you're going to end up with a numb bum, a full bladder, especially if you're drinking tea. You're going to get, dead leg. The seat springs are going to wear out over time and get uncomfortable. And gradually what started as comfortable isn't comfortable. But maybe you don't even notice it happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where it can be sneaky and stealthy, isn't it? It's not like you'd go from one day your really comfy chair to the next day, what is this?
Yeah.
That gradual discomfort will have started, will have accrued over time, won't it? The sort of sagging springs, as we've mentioned. Yeah, I think that's what can be a little bit sneaky about comfort zones becoming uncomfortable. But I absolutely agree, they won't necessarily stay that way because life doesn't stay still, right? Everything keeps changing, and you keep changing too. What you once found comfortable, you probably don't at another stage in your life, and the reverse. As sometimes as we get older, we find we're way more comfortable with things that we weren't when we're younger. So yeah, I think the idea of it being static just isn't true. And I think it's the noticing part. And we talk about this a lot, don't we? About awareness is always the first thing. But yeah, I think responding to how we actually feel about our comfort zone becoming uncomfortable is so important. And you've got a really interesting take on the idea of familiar discomfort. And I love how you put this, so I'll let you explain.
Yeah, the idea that familiar discomfort can be weirdly comforting. It's what we know, the familiarity of it can be mistaken for comfort. So even if that favourite armchair isn't actually very comfortable anymore, even if the springs are sticking out and it's a bit lopsided or whatever, maybe smells a bit, you're so used to it. You have that familiarity and you're so used to thinking of it as comfortable that it is familiar discomfort. But that can be quite difficult to step away from, I think. It offers a sense of security even. And you know what to expect from it. I think that's perhaps what it boils down to. And, perhaps a more serious example than the armchair. If you feel that you're not good enough, that doesn't immediately sort of shout, oh, comfort zone, does it? But when you're in that place, you get used to that kind of familiar discomfort because you know what to expect from it. You know what you're dealing with. You've got that framework for your relationships and your behavior, for your expectations of yourself and others. You don't have to make choices and take action that's scary. You've put yourself in this place that you understand. And even if it's not comfortable, it is the familiar discomfort is comforting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And going back to what we were saying before about it being this slightly sneaky effect, it's not sometimes like very black and white. Oh, this is now deeply uncomfortable. Chances are, I mean, sometimes that happens too. When you're subject to like an abrupt change, say you have a great relationship with your manager at work, they leave and you get a new boss and they're a completely different personality. Yes, you're going to experience a very, I guess, rude awakening to your comfort zone, aren't you? But I think a lot of the examples that we do have in life are not like that. They are more gradual, and you get into that kind of acclimatization. Like you said, it's not that it's comfortable, it's just weirdly comforting in its discomfort. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's getting difficult to keep up with the words around it now, isn't it? All this, whether it's comfortable or discomfortable, uncomfortable. when is uncomfortable actually comfortable? Yeah, there's a leading question. But I think we then sort of find ourselves in that situation thinking, well, either we can stick with the familiar discomfort or we have to risk some kind of unknown discomfort by stepping out of our comfort zone and taking big scary action. And there is a truth in that. To address the discomfort, we do have to do something different. We have to leave the comfort zone, don't we? And that can lead to all sorts of uncomfortable things going on. You can end up embarrassed, criticized, you can feel judged and ridiculed. You might have to deal with failure. You're certainly going to have to deal with other people's reactions to doing something different, behaving differently. It can damage relationships. Taking action that is not what people expect of you, not what you've been used to doing, can be rightly scary. But there is also the third option. It's not just familiar discomfort or the unknown discomfort. Maybe stepping out of your comfort zone could lead to potential comfort, to you ending up in a bigger, better comfort zone, perhaps an upgraded one.
Yeah. I'd like to think that when we're taking action and we're aware of the discomfort we might be creating, it's hopefully of a more temporary nature, that we are aiming for something on the other side of that, and we're aware of it, and that's where it's different, as opposed to just kind of tolerating something that we are used to. I do see those as being in quite different boats with very different feelings and outcomes. And you're right, sometimes it might lead to an unknown discomfort, but then hopefully we course correct and we'll do something to bring us back towards something that's more comfortable. But I think it's, on the whole, better and healthier than sticking with familiar discomfort.
Yeah, I think very often you're quite right. But I mean, there isn't actually anything wrong with staying in your comfort zone if that is where you feel best about yourself, I guess. I mean, I think any comfort zone is going to have some level of discomfort. Are you ever perfectly comfortable? So I guess and there can be the kind of should going on about leaving the comfort zone, that you should be aiming for bigger and better. You should be pushing yourself more. You should be a high achiever, etc., etc. And if that's what is, provoking you to think about leaving your comfort zone, maybe don't do it. It's okay to be happy where you are. You don't have to keep moving if you are actually overall very comfortable. Why risk that if that's what's making you happy? But it's not so good, like you just said. If you're staying there because you're staying out of fear, you're staying because of your limiting beliefs, that's really not so healthy, is it? And I think, speaking for myself here, I think what can be going on there is a lot of kind of victim mindset, that you recognize that there is discomfort, that you're not in a good place with it, but there's this kind of sense that it's up to the universe to sort it for you, that everybody else has to change, that your circumstances have to change before it can be better for you. And meanwhile, you just have to put up with it, and you're stuck there, and it's everybody else's fault, and you just get all bitter and twisted about it. But maybe that's just me. I think
No, it's not just you.
Myself stuck there.
No, it's human nature sometimes to just want to, be a bit of an ostrich, put your head in the sand and will for things to be different. But I think, sadly, we know all you get is an earful of sand and not much else.
Yeah, I like that. Earful of sand, that does not sound comfortable. And the truth is that it's very unlikely that things will suddenly become miraculously easy for you, that all the people who have done you wrong are going to see the error of their ways, and that everything is suddenly going to turn out right. Unfortunately, sadly, we do often have to take the action that might seem a bit scary, a bit uncomfortable, and step out of that comfort zone, isn't it? But actually, what is the worst case scenario if you step out of your comfort zone? It's discomfort, right? And you're already dealing with that. That's what's caused you to step out of it. So, you can deal with it. Yeah.
It makes me think of that phrase, better the devil you know. Like we were saying, the strangely comfortable discomfort. It's because we know it. It doesn't actually mean it's really that palatable. We've just come to know it, as opposed to the unknown one. But really is is it better the devil you know? Well, sometimes maybe not, but you're still taking some kind of, I think, more positive, proactive action and choice. Because, like you said, if that's the worst case scenario, more discomfort, course correct, hopefully seek that comfort again. But you've also given yourself a chance for a best case scenario as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
And the reality is we don't know. I love how humans like to try and think, I know what's going to happen from this thing. And we do, don't we? Even though we know, logically speaking, you don't know the future until you get there, but we still like to guess. We still like to think we know what's going to happen. But the truth is it may or it may not turn out as expected or as hoped. I've been talking about that quite a lot this week, actually. I feel very on point for talking about things that go wrong that actually sometimes end up being right in their wrongness. You end up we can think in very binary ways, can't we? Right and wrong, discomfort and comfort. Whereas actually maybe sometimes there is just a choice, a path, an action, and it might be different, but no less good or bad than, or comfortable or uncomfortable than what we currently are experiencing. It's just different. It's movement and it's choice.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, it's movement and it's choice. Yeah, that feels powerful, actually. It's movement and it's choice. And this idea of discomfort as something to be avoided, something bad, is perhaps a limiting belief for many of us. I mean, I joke about being very risk averse and, the missing link between humans and sloths and everything else. But actually, I think as I've got older and done more work on myself, I've definitely noticed that the growth happens in the discomfort. And something we talked about before, this whole idea of being able to trust yourself to deal with the discomfort, can make such a difference. And as you just said, the best case scenario when you leave your comfort zone is that it all goes brilliantly and you end up ultimately feeling a whole lot more comfortable than you were. So it's worth risking it for that. I mean, the most likely outcome every time you step out of your comfort zone is that you are going to experience some discomfort. But we just said, we're already experiencing discomfort. We know we can deal with that. We can trust ourselves to deal with that. And it will be temporary. As you've said, these things are not permanent, are they? You're probably going to experience some discomfort. It probably won't be a great deal of fun, but you will probably feel a damn sight better on the other side of it than you did before.
Yeah,
and that's only your kind of middle outcome. If the most likely one, it could be even better.
So given that we seem to be advocating a little bit of stepping outside your comfort zone in the right circumstances, and I think we've covered that actually, if things are good in certain areas, then perhaps there's no need to. But let's talk from the point of view that sometimes people might be aware of a need to possibly step out of it, but the reluctance comes in. What's your take on why that might be the case?
On why you're reluctant to step out, I think it's fear, isn't it? It's the fear of not just the discomfort you're going to experience, but potentially the fear of what you've got to lose. Because when you start changing how you are, how you behave, what you're doing, that can have quite an impact on the people around you, on relationships, friendships, how partners and families see you. So depending on how big a step out of your comfort zone you're planning on taking, it can feel quite daunting, can't it? And that pull of the familiar discomfort, the known, then can become quite strong. The bigger the risk involved, obviously, the bigger the opportunity to feel so much better on the other side of it. But also the more discomfort you're likely to experience in getting there.
Yeah. It can absolutely feel a bit overwhelming, and we can start to overthink, so we race ahead to the outcome we may or may not receive, don't we? Rather than perhaps thinking one step at a time. I think we leap ahead, don't we? We think all the way to the end of a process rather than perhaps the steps we might take. And the steps might also change as we start to take them. You think here's A, here's B, and here's the route. But actually, as you start, sometimes it'll be A via, a diversion or something a bit different, but you don't know until you start. But when we start thinking of the end in mind, we can sort of forget about the journey bit in between.
Yeah, so I've lost my words there. Something came up for me while you were talking. That really triggered something, and then I probably forgot it again. That's age for you, isn't it? It's wonderful.
Yeah, an uncomfortable place to be, right?
I mean, that moment when you're about to open your mouth and speak, and you realise that what was there isn't there anymore, and that's.
And then you think, where did it go? It's like, it was there like a second ago. It'll come back the moment we finish. You can guarantee that. That's okay. We can pop it in the notes. No problem. No one will mind.
It's evaporated into space.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a bit about what actually helps then when people are aware that they want to, need to, however they want to sort of phrase it, and they're contemplating it. What do you think helps people to manage those obstacles to leaving their comfort zone?
Okay, well, I think you touched on something really important just now, which was about sort of that focus on what you want at the end of it. That you don't. Oh, that's what I was going. That's what came from when you were talking. It's about not having. You said before about needing we want to know the future. We like to have some kind of certainty in where things are going, and one of the problems in stepping out of your comfort zone is feeling that we have to have it all mapped out. We have to know how we're going to get to the other side of the discomfort and the difficult process to get our bigger and better comfort zone. And very often we cannot know that. And as you said, all those, even if we think we do, things will happen to change the route. There's going to be diversions and bloody annoying temporary traffic lights and all that sort of shit going on. But exactly as you said, just keeping your eye on where you're going, it makes such a difference. And I think that's one of the key things that helps me when I'm looking in the face of the unfamiliar discomfort, is to focus on what I want, what's on the other side of it, where am I going to get to, and how much do I want that? And again, something you said earlier about when you change your manager, and that put me in mind of when you change jobs and you've moved because, the old comfortable environment has started to feel dull and stagnant and there was nowhere for you to go. And then you start a new job and suddenly you almost crave the dullness of the other one because it was comforting and comfortable and you know how it felt. But when you start, and it can make it quite hard to settle somewhere new, but when you focus on achieving that feeling in the new job, you start to move forward a bit. When you focus on learning the ropes and getting to know people, you're on your way to recreating that feeling that you want.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not instant, is it? At the beginning, you don't even know where to get a drink, where to go, all the basic stuff.
Where do I
I'm
get
terrible
a pen?
for directions. Remembering my way. I used to work in circular building, and I used to joke, well, at least I'll end up back where I started. I mean, not go that far wrong, but it did feel like a maze because sometimes some corridors would go the whole way around, and other times you'd have a staircase at different points. I think it was like a bit of a maze on purpose, like see if we could lose people.
Oh, that would have terrified me. No sense of direction. But yeah, so that focus on what you want on the other side of it is really important. And if you're really tuned in to knowing the difference it can make to step out of your comfort zone, then I think you're far more likely to do it. Now that can sound quite big. So I think almost at the other end of the scale, there's bringing your focus down to just one small step, to one small thing you can do, or potentially not do. If we're talking about changing habits and things like that, sometimes it's not doing something rather than doing it, isn't it? But it doesn't, in the same way, you don't have to know the whole process, the whole route before you start. Sometimes it's about committing to one small thing that feels manageable, but which starts you moving. You said about that movement and that choice. And things that I have found incredibly helpful are journaling and coaching. I mean, for me, journaling is the closest you can get to self-coaching, and it has the advantage of being free and easily accessible at any time at your convenience. It's such a good way of getting the stuff out of your head and bringing what we keep talking about, that conscious awareness to it, noticing what's going on for you and spotting those limiting beliefs and the patterns of thinking and feeling that aren't really serving you anymore. And of course, that's what coaching does in an even bigger and better way for you. But then we would say that, wouldn't we? Because coaching's fab.
It is. I actually had a coaching session myself yesterday, and what's so great about it is someone else will offer a perspective that you sometimes can't see in the moment. The phrase, you can't see the wood for the trees. When you're so close to something and you're used to seeing it in a certain way as well, like your comfort zone is your comfort zone for a reason. You know it inside out and why it's comfortable to you. So entertaining other questions about why it's uncomfortable and what else, it's a bit like tunnel vision, isn't it? Sometimes you don't see what you don't see. And I think coaching just helps to shine spotlights in all the other corners around you that you perhaps haven't spotted or thought about. And it just encourages other bits of thinking around it. And that can still involve, actually, this is right for me. I think sometimes there's a misconception that coaching is all about driving a change. Not regardless, but it has to be that. And sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it can be, this is good, this is fine, this is what I like. But then sometimes there's a but. These are the things I want to change and alter. And that's what you were saying about focusing what you want and sometimes it being one step. And infinitely, I think that's going to be slightly more comfortable for people to get their heads around and be prepared to take. And when you take that first step, you think, oh, it's not so bad. This has been worth it. And now I might take the next step. So you don't go from being really terrified of something to suddenly it being all amazing and brilliant in one great leap. I had a client who had to do public speaking. I think I might have mentioned this one before. And it's really hard to say, but that's all right. Just brave it out, tough it out, go and stand in front of hundreds of people. It'll be fine. It doesn't, that's quite it's a very uncomfortable thing for a lot of people to do. But you can start taking the smaller steps. Okay, a smaller audience, I'll practice, I'll do it in front of my partner, all these little things. And you think, actually, that wasn't so bad. The next step, that wasn't so bad. Oh, it's actually okay. And you get there by degrees as opposed to in one big leap.
Yeah, what's the phrase? Is it boiling a frog or something when you just...
Oh, yeah.
It's
well, that's not a good thing, is it?
No, I'm
deeply
not.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, definitely uncomfortable. We're not advocating boiling of frogs. Poor frogs, what have they done to deserve it? But
no, and we talk about what is it? It's eat the frog as well, isn't it? The phrase "eat the frog" when it's the task that you don't get done. Poor frogs. Yeah, I know. Mind you, if we substitute it for another animal, I'm not sure we're making it any better. Make it vegetarian.
Let's change the metaphor.
The
carrot. Or carrot.
Biscuit.
Mind you,
if we did eat the biscuit, everyone just knows we just like chopping on biscuits. So I'm not sure we're really making a point there.
No, I think I'll just end up eating the biscuit anyway. But maybe it's like getting into a hot bath. As you ease yourself in, what felt really uncomfortably hot to start with, it settles into feeling kind of luxurious and soothing as you get used to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a good point, actually, on the hot bath. When you first dip your toe in, it's like agonizingly hot. Yeah. But I'm one of these people, the moment the bath starts to cool down, I hate it. I like being in a hot bath, not a lukewarm bath. It's like, I'm not about that. Having it maintained.
If I haven't come out with secondary degree burns, then, it's not a proper bath. But how do we get to that?
I know. I think we've slightly digressed. Let's talk a little bit. So we've actually both written about comfort zones before, haven't we? So we will share in the notes. We've both got blogs about comfort zones, and interesting, we've got slightly different angles. Probably still sharing a lot of similar points, but we'll share both of those. But as we usually do, we have some quotes to share with you before we end with our question.
We always have quotes, don't we?
Yes.
There are some good ones out there around comfort zone. I think one that sort of summed up quite nice what we've been saying is, in the long run, our comfort zone becomes our uncomfortable zone, from Charles F. Glassman. That was just very clear and to the point, I felt.
Yeah, absolutely. But it does confirm what we were saying about what's comfortable now may not always be, even by degrees and slight sneakiness.
If I can add another one in, because
Yeah.
the other one that really spoke to me was, I have stepped outside my comfort zone enough to know that, yes, the world does fall apart, but not in the way that you fear. And that was from Tan Lee. And I just love that sense of how it can be so radical in very different ways.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
a kind
it's that sort of facing the change and the unknown, but actually it doesn't, perhaps like we said, as expected. Sometimes there's the good flip side as well as the uncomfortable parts. I liked this one. As you move outside of your comfort zone, what was once the unknown and frightening becomes your new normal. And that's Robin S. Sharma. And that's kind of what we were saying, wasn't it? About, when you start the new job, you suddenly realize how little you know. You don't know people's names. You don't know where everything is. But that is just the start. And that will also become comfortable and second nature again. You're just having to hit, it's like that reset button, first day at school type scenario where you just realize, I don't even know where the classrooms are, that kind of thing. But it doesn't stay that way. So just as comfortable becomes uncomfortable over time, the uncomfortable can also obviously become comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's a point you made in your blog. You said that which really stuck with me. It's the problem is not about the discomfort, but about staying in it. So as long as we recognize that movement and that choice, we can trust ourselves to cope.
Exactly. So what is our question? Kirsty, we'll both obviously answer it as we always do.
Okay, so the question is, what might make you want to leave your comfort zone?
It's a good question. Because like we said, you don't necessarily always want to.
No.
I think for me, it would be considering something we've spoken about before, which is those sort of autopilot tendencies when you're not perhaps seeing other options and possibilities. And obviously not all autopilot is bad. Some of it is helpful. But it does also mean we can miss some opportunities, growth and possibilities. And I also have this slight motto that actually, if I really don't like it, I don't have to continue with it. If I try something and it's like, yikes, this is just not for me. And it's not even, that's not even temporary discomfort. I think this is not something that feels right for me, and feeling confident enough to know that and own that's fine. But sometimes you don't know until you've gone there and tried it. And I think that's, for me, what helps me to step out of my comfort zone. What about you?
I like that. Yeah, you don't have to brazen it out. If it's wrong for you, it's wrong, and there's no shame in saying that.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, actually, isn't it? That fear that if once we've started, we have to commit, and that's it. Whether we like it or not, we're tied into it. But that's just not true, is it? I love that. Thank you. And for me, it's something I've already touched on. What makes me want to leave my comfort zone is, actually, I'm thinking about it now. It's essentially greed. It's the promise of a bigger and better comfort zone. Of the comfort zone upgrade. The knowledge that it can be better than this, which is a bit greedy when you put it like that, isn't it? But why not? We're allowed to want more.
Oh, why not? Absolutely. Be greedy. Love that. So that's our question for you all today. I hope that perhaps you resonate with either of our answers, or you also have something of your own. But our message really is just to consider the real, I guess, level of comfort, isn't it, of the comfort zone, and that it's fine if it is, but also what to do if perhaps it is not, and considering what's on the other side of the comfort zone. So.
And also be nice to frogs. I think that is an important message.
Yes. No unpleasant boiling of frogs, no. Yeah. And eating lots of biscuits. We always advocate that.
Yes. Eat biscuits, not frogs. Right. I'm glad we've cleared that one up.
Yes. I think that might be the message people get from today. It's about biscuits and frogs rather than discomfort. But hopefully we've made our point.
Our work here is done.
It is. Right. We'll see you all soon for another episode. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect.
Please visit the show notes for details on how to contact us and for any resources we may have on the topic discussed.
Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.